Welcome back to Retro Wednesday. It's Tiberium Hanger. This is Mike, and today I want to talk to you about Tron. So there's a lot going on with Tron right now. There's a Haslab out. There's, of course, the vintage Tomy line with 4 figures and 2 cycles. And then we saw some stuff going on in 2002 with NECA. Then we saw Spin Masters, was it, that did 2010. So a little bit of stuff there. And then Super 7, most recently at the Disney parks, came out with their stuff. So I'm going to talk about all this stuff and kind of go into it, show what has been made, and some other stuff, I guess. I don't know, it was either McFarlane or Diamond Select that made these figures, these bigger figures, in the larger scale. But let's get into looking at this. Mostly the 3.75 inch, you know, what's going to happen in the Haslab, or not happen in the Haslab. Coming up. So the 1982 movie was groundbreaking in a lot of ways, and a lot of people didn't really talk about computers the way Tron talked about computers and programs and all of that stuff. But I was a little bit interested in it as a kid because of the graphics, because of the glowing suits. It kind of felt like a photon kind of deal, like these characters running around in a photon ring. And Photon, of course, was the second best by a long shot to Laser Tag. Laser Tag didn't have all of these laser tag rounds, but anyhow, this is something that kind of had a cult following for a while, but it's not massive. It doesn't have a huge following. Not a lot of people are just like, hey, I can't wait to watch Tron again. And this new Tron Ares, it's a divestiture, it's a departure from the original series, and it's probably not going to do that well, but still at the same time, it's a lot of fun to kind of rewatch the origins of where it started. And it's 80s. It's very, very 80s in every single way. Let's talk about this toy line, toy stuff, multiple toy lines right now. All right, so let's start out with looking at the figures here, and it's kind of fun. So one of the things about this toy line is the fact that there were only 4 figures, and it was Tron, Flynn, Sark, and is it the Warrior, something like that? And I'll say this, the line is fun because it's clear figures, kind of feels like Chris Darnell a little bit of the way. And there's a lot to what happened after the original stuff with the Tomy. Now, some people argue or discuss that maybe the NECA stuff that came later was better or not. So let's just get down to the original figures right now. All right, so getting into the Tron figure, the whole story is that he's sort of, it's named after Tron. He's a main character in there, but everyone thinks that Jeff Bridges' character, Flynn, which we'll see next, is the main character and the one that should have been called Flynn, right? But Tron sounds cooler. This is the original Takara Tomy. Well, it's Tomy one, for Takara Tomy, I guess. And then this is the NECA remake. And there's the big difference between the two. There's not much. It's almost impossible to tell. The only real reason or the real way to tell is if the actual remake. So if this original one has a bigger hole in the back, and there's other telltale signs, I'm sure, but the NECA stuff won't fit. It won't work. So that's, NECA at least went out of the way to say, hey, we're not going to make these manufactured light discs fit, which would have been nice if they did, actually. I mean, I really don't care, but people would be pulling them off saying, let's sell these discs at a crazy retail vintage price instead of what it really went for. So with that, that's one issue. The other thing is there's all kinds of paint on them. They are translucent, even though I guess my lighting, they're not looking as translucent. There's a lot of paint on them, and that's kind of what determines or distinguishes the value of these figures, is if they have paint on them. Now, how did I acquire these? This was in either a Star Wars or a G.I. Joe case. And as I was kind of going through, I bought a lot of collections over the last decades, and I just set aside stuff that I liked. I thought it was cool. I thought it was interesting. Just put it on a separate shelf and said, hey, you know what? I'll put this on a separate shelf. And that's what I did. And so with that, There is Tron. Getting into Flynn, he is a lighter color. So the difference, of course, let's keep Tomy original, vintage, and the NECA 2002 remake right there. And with that, all this, these actually glow in the dark too, but my camera can't pick it up well enough, so I'm not going to really go through all that. There's not enough here to make it really fantastic, so, but I do feel it's strange. I feel like the NECA stuff is fading and color changing every bit as much as the vintage stuff, and some parts of the vintage stuff is holding up better than NECA's, which is interesting too. You would think everything NECA would be pristine and perfect, and that's just not the way it is. But Flynn has a sash, and I guess I should have shown it with Tron too, but this is the, I think it's Diamond. My son says it's Diamond Select. I can't remember exactly. I think he's right though, because I just didn't care. I was like, whatever, they're cheap, I'll buy them. And there it is. He's got this sash thing over him, kind of like a toga party. Flynn said, hey, it's like a prelude. It's almost halfway there to the dude wearing his, Jeff Bridges wearing his loungewear, his shower coat. Anyway, then there it is. You can see the sash piece kind of right there covering up his stuff on his program. These are all programs, and there is the disc on the back. So kind of a cool figure and kind of fun. We're gonna going through all this. We're gonna notice much big difference when we get to Super 7, and then of course the Haslab. Here we go with, I believe this one is, and this is where I start having to go and, okay, is this really is that really the NECA? Because it's hard to tell. And yeah, that's the NECA, because the NECA tab is smaller. They got a smaller insertion tab than what we got with the original Tomy. This is Sark. Sark is the main bad guy, the main antagonist of this. And there was master program that he allegedly had to report to, but it seemed like he called the shots anyway. So not much difference between the NECA and the original. Almost impossible to tell. And if somebody passed them off and didn't have one of these with it, then it's even if they had it with it, you wouldn't know if you didn't have an original one to check the size of the port and all that kind of stuff. But they look great. I mean, fun, translucent figures. One of the other reasons I get confused is because I did pick up, he's probably the cheapest figure of all of the Tron figures. Nowadays they're all pretty stupid expensive, but there is the vintage, you can tell, and then there is the NECA. And so with that, glow-in-the-dark staff, and my vintage one is a little rough. This one is the cheapest, and I'm sure I didn't pay squat diddly for it, but mine is kind of rough. So the vintage versus the NECA one. And I did get a set of NECA really, really cheap, and then I got some carded NECA, so we can look at that here in just a second. But the fun thing about this is that this would be the troop builder. This would be the one that you'd run a lot of. And in the Super 7 realm, I knew that when I was at Disney World, but I still didn't buy multiples of it just because, well, they were stupid expensive. So I do have two NECA carded figures that I had the opportunity to buy all of them for 20 each. And I had spent it on other stuff, and I said, "No, just next time." Well, next time, if you're at a vintage toy shop and something you want's there, buy it. Don't think that next week or next month it's still going to be there, because once you walk out the door, somebody else walks in and buys it, and there's only so much vintage stuff to go around. This is, I don't call it vintage, but some people do, just because it was 2002. But there it is. So there's all the figures that were with it, and one of the two light cycles they made. They made a blue one, which I don't have, so we'll get into light cycles here in a minute. But there's the staff, the figure, looking pretty good. And I did kind of double up on him for the NECA because I knew he was a warrior. And then I just wanted to have a carded version of him, and I didn't realize the bubble's not that great, but $20, not the end of the world. So I do want to kind of show, I don't even know if I can get these to stand on their own at all. But this is the Super 7 one that came out in 2023. and got it at Disney World. Now, I spent too much money on this stuff. I did buy a little bit of multiples because some of the stuff was new. But notice, so size difference, it's a little bit shorter. You can see that. It's a little bit shorter. And because they were $25 each, and I think you still get them for the most part for that price, like a set for $100 or something, it's still, to me, it's just extremely expensive for what it was. And I think there were alternate ways to pick them up cheaper, but anyway, this guy looks like the show, like the movie, more than the original toy did. So that's why it was worthwhile picking up. Let's get into another comparison right here. This is the Warrior, and it does look different. Similar yet different. More like the movie. And I'll give it to them. They did a great job. This definitely fits in a Tron collection, but maybe a different side of your shelf. And looking at the back of the Super 7 card back, you've got 1, 2, 3 different vehicles. And the reason I'm not really worried about the figures for Super 7 Tron as much, because we get in the vehicles, we'll see all that. But there's one special figure, Yori, that was never made before until Super 7 got hold of it. Here's the Yori figure, the female character in the show. Looks less female than she should. They really struggle with the female characters. Well, I'm not gonna lie, they actually did a good job with some of the Joe female characters. But there she is, and she looks good. People say, oh, she was never made before. Now the Haslab's the only way to get her. No, you can get her right here. But I mean, you gotta go to eBay nowadays because that run's done, and very little reaction do I get excited reaction from. But I did pick these up at Disney World, so it is what it is, and I probably way overspent for them. Now for the light cycles, they only made 2 back in the day, and they made a yellow one, a yeller one, and they made a, opens from this end, a yellow one and a red one. You can put the figure in, sit them in there. I guess, let me just grab, just have a bunch of Sarks, so they sit in there like this, and then you can close this on them, and then they're in there. You can see them glistening a little bit through the windshield. I mean, mine's okay. So I looked it all up. I think I paid $70 for this one and $60 for this one, which I thought I got them way cheaper than that because I didn't have the ripcord. Now it's kind of a fun little game here. These are Orco ripcords. I have several, like 5 laying around, but they work. So what you do is you pull this, and it goes. Well, goes-ish. Goes-ish. You feed it into here, like this. And I like to roll the wheel. So, you know, maybe it's not the same pattern length, whatever you would call that, but it works. I mean, you saw it work. An Orco ripcord. Pretty much any ripcord from the 80s is gonna work. Kind of feels like a fidget spinner, you know what? Getting into what Super 7 did with the reactions line, we've got a red one, a yellow one, and an orange one. Boom. And the orange is looking yellow on my camera. Hopefully it looks more orangish well, in editing. So get these out of the way. So here is the red one. You're gonna get the red figure with Ram. So Ram is a character that's not offered carded. Or if it was offered carded, I didn't pick it up. But I believe I bought everything they had available carded. So you have to get Ram to get the light cycle, I guess. I think this was either $60 or $70. It was 2023. I don't remember. And I remember, like, I got to get it. I also found a nice cheap lot afterwards for like $58. It had 2 cycles and some figures, but I missed it. So Flynn and the light cycle. So you can get the Flynn figure repacked with the yellow light cycle. These don't have the energy trail behind them, which would have been nice if they would have incorporated that. But of course, that's what, like every time you get something new, hey, what are we gonna do now? Well, let's give them the energy trail behind it. Then this is Tron and his light cycle. And it's orange. Now, NECA gave us a blue one. Let me cut this. Hopefully I remember to put the picture of the blue light cycle in here, but NECA did give us a blue one. So that's where NECA comes in and they're special. But also you get a blue one with the Haslab, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. Now with these, they do open up similar to the vintage ones. They are different than the vintage ones, but yet similar to the vintage ones. They don't have a ripcord in this. Then I think the NECA ones were exactly like the vintage, but the Super 7 don't have a ripcord. So, and they open up about the same. But I think in the Super 7 you can lay your figure laying forward. But these are so expensive at the time, I didn't open any of these, and I don't plan to. I just like looking at them in their package. But I kind of wished this Haslab wasn't Haslab, so we could actually get this at retail for even cheaper than Super 7, but I guess I was just wishing on a star. All right, so now it's time to talk about Haslab. So the Haslab is 5 figures, fully articulated instead of 5 points of articulation like we got with everything else prior to it. So every single other figure was 5 points of articulation, except for, I guess, the Diamond Select stuff. Now, the weird thing about it is that they want $260, which in itself wouldn't be horrible, except for the fact that if you want doubles, like I got 2 of Yuri, you can't get 2 of Yuri. You've got to buy 2 whole sets. And if you want just the blue light cycle, you're screwed. You have to pay $200 and something. You might as well just go buy the NECA. And that's just like the vintage. So there's a lot of angles to all of this. If it was released mass market, they made 100,000 instead of 10,000. They could have got the price down 50% easily. So with that, putting the figures out, even at $20 a figure, which I think is too much, $17 a figure, I think still too much, it would have been better to pick and choose. And then the light cycles, pick and choose. And then, yeah, 40% is calculated in at a clearance rate. So some of the stuff will go to clearance. But as a Haslab, I don't think it's going to make it. If it does make it, I mean, it's great. But I'm not backing it. I don't see the need for it. And I don't know if I really want to go into highly articulated. I think they think this is a one and done. You just buy this and never make anything Tron ever again. And that is another thing that sucks. I mean, you make the molds, you make all that. Why not open yourself up to putting these out in clear in the future? Why not open this up to putting them out in different color variations? And why not give us more light cycles in more colors? But still, it's kind of one of those weird things. The light cycle doesn't have a ripcord and it doesn't open up. It splits sideways. But anyhow, I'm not a huge fan of the Haslab. In fact, I'm starting to think Haslab is like the ex-girlfriend you're glad you got rid of and pawned off on someone else. That's a fun video for the future. So I hope you enjoyed this look at everything Tron that's been made over the years that I know of or that I've seen. And there's some customs out there. There's some 3D prints of cycles. All kinds of cool stuff. You can get 3D prints of cycles that'll fit the bigger figures and all that kind of stuff. But with this and Tron, there's not much to it. If you want to collect it, you have to pay up for the little bit that's out there. And is it worth it? Only if you like it. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Like and subscribe. And Tomy and NECA out.
Hey, who's that guy?
That's Tron. He fights for the users.
This is Blue Leader to Blue Bikes. Run these guys into your jet walls.
You're getting brutal, Sark.
This is all a mistake. I'm just a compound interest program.